Okay, so welcome to our sustainability event we are running today. My name's Jamie, and to begin with, we're just going to go through a bit of an overview of the event and some housekeeping processes, just to keep you informed of if there's any technical issues or if there's any issues at all, and we'll give you all the right information for that now. So it's how to make your sports club smart and sustainable as part of the Live Smart Festival. I want to thank everyone for attending today, and I hope everyone finds this event really informative and can take a lot away from it to implement some sustainable actions at your grassroots sports club. So the event for today is going to be split up into two parts. So, sorry, bear with us 1 second. So part one, we're going to start off with Zane, who's going to talk through the current state of sustainability with some statistics and get some information that way. Gary Thomas is kind enough to join us today for a guest speaker talk about Forest Green Rovers and all the sustainable actions they're doing at his football club. Then we're going to end part one with a sustainability Kahoot quiz with Elliot. So we'll need our mobile phones ready for that. Then we're going to have a 5-minute break for part two. And part two is scenarios, lots of different sustainability scenarios, and talk about some of the options available for some of the scenarios for each sports. We're going to have a Q&A with Gary Thomas. So if you've got any burning questions for Gary about maybe implementing sustainable actions at your club, then feel free to jot them down throughout the event and get it ready for the Q&A at this point. Then we're going to go through the debrief, just going through what we've learned at the event and what we can take away from this to try and implement this for ourselves. And then we'll talk about the certificate and the post-event document that will be sent out after the event. So microphones and video. In the breakout rooms for part two of the interactive workshop, we're going to have our microphones on, and you'll be able to do this pretty easily by just turning on your microphones. And then also, just for a better engagement experience, if you can have your cameras on as well, that would be great. So if you experience any technical issues today, feel free to message Emily, who's tech support, in the Zoom chat. You can do that quite easily. If you're not able to do that, you can call her on our phone number there. If you want to take a quick picture of that, maybe that would be good on your phones. And then also you can message us on our social media. So we got our Instagram, Facebook and Twitter available if none of the above work, but probably try the Zoom chat and the call function first. Just want to bear in mind for everyone that this event has been recorded for on-demand purposes, so it can be shared after the event for those who can't be with us today. By continuing with the event, you agree that you may feature in the recording and you're happy for this to go ahead. So just to get things going, really, I'm going to introduce this short 3-minute video, which we all thought was a very good video, just to get our brains thinking about sustainability and some of the risk in the future if we don't take action now. So I'm just going to let this video play.
City manager Phil Foden has said it's a sad day for football.
Australia is holding its breath for rain as the country faces a continued drought, the lack of water adding more fuel to the wildfires. With the death toll now reaching 26, experts are warning that the threat isn't over.
Dennis scores widespread flooding across England. The heat is.
To Balotelli, it runs for Aguero! They've done it! City win the title! It's Aguero!
So So who do you think you'll walk out with? Could be Aguero.
Maybe. Or Kevin De Bruyne.
De Bruyne?
Bruyne.
Well,
Maybe it'll be Foden.
Yeah, future captain there.
Oh, like 170 goals.
Actually, Brooks scored 177 goals.
The UK's 10 hottest years have all occurred since 2002.
Feeling excited?
Is that really you, Mum?
Yeah, those were the days.
The government's enforced water restrictions have closed pubs, restaurants, stadiums and arenas across the country.
Come on, up you go.
Get your water, now £20.
City manager Phil Foden has said
It's a sad day for football. With the sustained drought closing stadiums across the country, this could be the last time we see City play.
By 2045, we are predicted to face severe drought. But if we act now, we can save our future and the game we love.
So that's a great video, I thought that. But now we're going to pass over to Shane, who's going to talk about the statistics of the current game in sustainability.
Yeah, so thank you, Jamie, for all that. So obviously, we've just been through a big year. This year's taken us by storm. We've had 100,000 deaths in the UK. Even more people have been hit by the after effects, whether that's been financially and socially. With this video that we've just seen here, obviously we've seen the issues raised based on stuff about saving water, maybe using too much energy, but obviously there's a bigger picture of sustainability. You might not understand too much about sustainability, but this is the whole point of our program today. We want to make sure that you understand the full scope of it, which is not just about the environment, but also about your finances, as well as socially. So just to start off with, you can put something in the chat to base a statistic, to get a statistic, or even just guess in your own time. How many grassroots football leagues were forced to cancel fixtures as a result of bad weather in a recent season? Based on the percentage, does anyone have any guesses to put in the chat? Just give you 10 seconds for that. So 40% there. 60%. You weren't too far away from it, to be honest. It was actually 69%, 96%, sorry, of football clubs that were forced to cancel as a result of bad weather. Furthermore, a lot of other clubs believe that they could have avoided it with best drainage or best pitches. And what was that statistic? 6 in 10 leagues. Obviously, this is just one part of it, but we've also seen the likes of professional clubs suffer as a result of it. Carlisle United's Burton Park was flooded and it was forced to close for 7 weeks, which meant they lost out on a lot of money. So just imagine if that was a professional club, what could happen to a grassroots club? You might know of it yourself as well. Maybe it might have been football, rugby, or any other sport as well. The next one to guess, this is a numbers-based one. World Health Organization states that essentially how many deaths could have been avoided if the global population were more active. $5 million deaths. Quite an astronomical amount based on just the fact that the likes of simple jogging, walking, or even swimming could do a big difference to the people who are not very active as us, or maybe quite sedentary. I just wanted to bring it back to one of our main issues, and one of the reasons why we chose to do this topic was based off the fact that we need to kickstart so much more of this sporting activity beyond COVID. Sport England states that positive attitudes towards sport and physical activity amongst primary and secondary school pupils has what during the pandemic? It's ended up decreasing. Obviously, we've seen during COVID the price of gym equipment rise. We've seen facilities closed, gyms, and also outdoor activity being disallowed, which has obviously left a lot of people who may live in rural areas to just stay at home and become more sedentary. And for those who might even be more of an active person, missing out on their gyms, and most importantly, also their sports clubs, which give them so much more in social value. So I guess one of the main things we want to understand is who really backs sustainability. Well, it's not just a case of something that's being done and it's being spoken about at grassroots level and just beyond friends. A lot of the clubs are taking part in it. We can focus on some of the biggest names probably within the Southwest region. For example, Gloucester Rugby, who've looked to bring in sustainable initiatives based around the likes of water and using reusable glasses. England Netball for the Netball World Cup in Birmingham, I believe it was. They've done a lot of sustainable initiatives where they were just renting out equipment as opposed to buying it. But obviously, one of the most important teams, not just in Gloucester, but also probably the whole world, is Forest Green Rovers. So for them, obviously, we're talking about not just a club that's in League Two and it's done fairly well over the past few years to become the club it is now, but also a team that's been voted by the UN as one of the first carbon neutral clubs in the world. As we can see from the quote there, it's not all just about racism and sexism and societal issues, but in football, it's also about the environment. Obviously, as football fans, we neglect it, or sports fans in general, we neglect it, but hopefully, during this session, we can hope to remedy this idea and change the perception on all things sustainability. But who's better to talk about this than Gary Thomas, the man who leads Ecotricity and has so much knowledge on how to really bring in sustainable action into your club. So without further ado, let's bring Gary Thomas, the sustainability lead at Green Britain Group. Gary.
Hi, thanks, Zane. Hopefully everyone can hear me now. I'm just going to start sharing my screen and start the presentation. I'd just like to thank you guys for inviting me along today. It's great to be able to just have that opportunity to chat to people and talk you through all the marvellous things that we've been doing at Forest Green Rovers over the last few years. Just bear with me. Cool. Okay, I'm just going to kill my video feed because we've got a bit of a Wi-Fi issue today. Hopefully, the important thing is to be able to hear me and see the slides. So, as Zane said, my name's Gary Thomas. I'm the sustainability lead throughout the Green Britain Group. So folk often, they ask me, why have you got a football club in this mix of companies of ours? Oh, together as a group, our main areas of focus, basically our pillars are energy, transport, food, and nature. And the first of those three things, they're basically responsible for over 80% of the carbon emissions that we produce in the UK. So cracking those, is basically the way of cracking the bigger problems that we face globally. Now, for us, the energy angle of things is covered by Ecotricity. We were the first dedicated renewable energy company in the world. We've got a fairly unique business model where basically we take customers' bills and we invest that in building new forms of renewable energy. So we plough those profits back. And at the moment, we're building 3 new solar farms, and we've got a whole raft of windmills across the UK. On top of that, we've also got a manufacturing arm that produces small-scale windmills that help other people become more energy independent. Transport side of things, that's addressed by our electric highway. It's the first national network of EV charge points in the UK. If you've been to a service station, you can't fail to have missed them. You know, basically, before we came along, there were a lot of small hubs of EV charging across the UK, but there's nothing joining them up, so people couldn't travel really outside of their own cities. We looked at it when, well, the motorway network's an arterial network. That's what we need to electrify, basically, to allow people to travel around more freely. Hopefully, you know, we've been fairly instrumental in being part of the increasing growth in EVs in the UK. Food side of things, we've got covered by the Devil's Kitchen. It's a new member of the Green Britain Group family. Basically, it manufactures vegan and allergen-free foods for the mass catering market initially, so schools, universities, football stadia, you know, anywhere that wants that sort of thing, as well as the home market, which we're now moving into via Ocado. And Forest Green Rovers, you know, the football club, that's where all of these elements, they come together. And, you know, it's our showcase that demonstrates what can be done in, you know, in an industry that traditionally is really quite far removed from the topic of sustainability. And when we started out on this journey back in 2010, you know, FGR were in the Conference League, the team were all part-time players. Yeah, just over a decade later, we're now in League Two, and we're showing a strong position in the table over the last couple of years, and hopefully that will continue and we'll manage to hold on to the chance of being promoted again. Off the pitch, we've done pretty well too. You know, FIFA, they recognise us as the greenest football club in the world, as well as helping, you know, other clubs in other sports, you know, areas to transition to a more sustainable operation. We've also been brought on board by the United Nations to help them shape their Sport for a Climate Action initiative. So why should you, as grassroots clubs, be looking to be more sustainable? We've already touched upon it. You know, climate change is something that's already affecting us all, and it's not just about the polar bears. You know, think about the weather in recent years and how that's hit us. You know, how many matches get cancelled because waterlogged pitches, or there's too much snow that you know, the players or the fans can't reach the game, or the pitch is frozen solid and it's too dangerous to play on. Yeah, how are we going to adapt to this in the future to keep on playing? And, you know, think about your teams and their performance as the average temperatures are, you know, continue to rise. Are we going to have to look at starting matches and doing training earlier on in the day to avoid, you know, those health risks from heat exposure and stuff like that? Hopefully, in this talk, you have a chance to learn a few new things about what we've been doing at FGR over the last 10 years. You know, you might even pick up a few ideas that you can take back and try out at your own clubs. Now, initially, you might think that the particular things that I'm talking about isn't something that you could do, but, you know, just think about it a little bit deeper. You might not be able to copy it 100% and translate it that way, but, you know, there might be elements, ideas there that you can adapt for your club. And, you know, some of these things will be quick and simple and easy, and it's most wonderful. And others, they might take more time to embed in, and they might take a little bit of capital investment. But just doing something, that first step in making a positive action, you know, it'll all help it in the long run. This is a quote from Dale Vince, who's the founder of Ecotricity and the chair of FGR. And I like it because it sums up our approach. This chat may, you know, be times quite sort of carbon focused, but, you know, largely everything does come back to carbon. But sustainability, it stretches beyond just numbers on the spreadsheet. And, you know, you've got to consider it's a much wider breadth of impacts if you're looking to create a truly sustainable solution. And that's the same no matter what size your club is or where your starting position lies. So we've had a thing called an environmental management system in place at FGR now for, well, nearly 10 years, and we're ISO 14001 certified across the whole of the Green Britain Group. And yeah, that's an internationally recognised standard for environmental control. Now, having an environmental management system, an EMS like this, it's helped us to focus, to identify the things that are coming into the club, raw materials, products, things like that, what's happening to them whilst we've got them, and then what's sent out at the other end, waste, dirty water, you know, also products, things like shop merchandise, programs, that sort of stuff. Now, I'm not encouraging you all to go out in tomorrow to start writing, you know, environmental systems for your club. You don't need to get swamped by a sea of procedures. So treat this really, you know, as a method for helping you to get where you want to be. It's an approach that's, you know, it's just applicable to somebody trying to green up their home life as it is to an international club or, you know, a huge big mega corporation that's looking to improve their environmental performance. Now, by identifying the inputs and the outputs and mapping everything in this manner, we can identify the areas that have the greatest environmental impact. And once you've done that, you can put them in the rough rank order, and then you start to look at them individually. You know, what can be done to reduce those problems? You know, it's a classic plan, check, act process. The planning bit's where we map everything. It's the ins and the outs and the in the middly bits, and identify the problem areas, because, you know, you can't address a problem until you know where that issue actually lies. Then we got the doing bit. So we can then implement action plans to reduce those issues. And this can be done by looking at the issue and deciding if it's possible to, you know, can you avoid it, or maybe you need to reduce it in some way. And if you can't do either of those, maybe you have to think about replacing the problem altogether. Once we've done that, the doing bit's over, it's time to check on things, because, you know, monitoring and measurement, they're important also to ensure that plans are kept on course and providing the results that we're looking for. And then it comes back to the final part of that circle, the acting, where we look at what we can do to improve the things further on, or is it, you know, maybe we're done with that and it's time to address the next issue on our list. And that's the thing when you're working with a hierarchy. You take the top one off and another just pops up to take its place. So, yeah. FGR, the final part for us, under the commitment that we have with the United Nations, is to look at compensating for any residual emissions that we have. We do this through the purchase of UN certified emission reduction certificates as part of the United Nations Climate Neutral Now pledge. And the UN recognised us as the first carbon neutral football club in the world. Yeah. In the world of sustainability, carbon credits do have a place in the process, but they come at the end once you've done as much as you can with the avoiding and the reducing and the replacing. You know, it's not something that should be done you know, as soon as you've completed that initial bit of planning work and you haven't actually set out on any of the doing parts where you're actually looking at the problems and trying to sort them. So here we've got the carbon footprint for FGR, and the tons of carbon that you see on that axis on the left hand side, you know, they'll be very different from a grassroots club to an international team, but the stuff that's included there in the key, they're common no matter what size of team you are, because we got things like energy, you know, electric and gas, water, as well as transport related emissions, you know, and it's going back to those big areas that are also responsible for such a large part of the carbon emissions in the UK. It's the stuff that every club will have to deal with at some point. Now, this chart shows the footprint that we've got calculated by what's known as a location-based method. And that's where the amount of carbon per unit of energy, be it, you know, gas or electric, it's the same for everyone, no matter where your supply is coming from. And it's a standard figure. This graph, yeah, it's great because it particularly helps to show what we've done regarding energy management at FGR. The emissions, well, they increased as we improved footballing performance. We got promoted and we had more people coming to watch the games. So we had to increase the number of lights and food and stuff like that. So we were creating more emissions. But in recent years, we've seen this level begin to drop. You know, and in part, yeah, it's due to the greening of the UK grid and the reduction in carbon intensity of grid electric as the UK's moved from fossil fuel economy towards renewables. But it's also, you know, it's down to cutting electric and gas use on site, and we'll take a look at what we've done with those measures in a minute. But our electric at FGR, provided by Ecotricity, is from 100% renewable tariff. In the gas, it's carbon neutral through offsets that Ecotricity purchases. So for reporting purposes, we can remove these emissions, and that's the result. Yeah, you can see there the importance that having a renewable supplier can have on your journey towards being zero carbon. You might think, oh, we've only got a small site to power, you know, what difference could it make? But if everyone switched to a greener energy supply, then there'd be a knock-on effect. And again, it's a small action by a lot of people that add up to that big difference. And you know, this is just one that's a really simple thing to do, and it'll only take a few minutes. Now, at the minute, you might not know who your energy supplier is. So, you know, find out, badger the person who's in charge of energy, you know, for your site, be it your landlord or be it somebody within your own management team, and ask them, you know, are we using 100% renewable energy supply? The greenest unit of electric that you can have, it is effectively, it's the one that you don't use. And thinking back to that process of plan, do, check, act, in that doing bit, there were lots of ways of cutting things by applying that hierarchy of avoid and reduce and replace. And at FGR, we avoid grid electric because we generate around about 20% of our requirements from solar panels. And they're the first thing that you see when you come onto the site, right at the main gate. Our south stand is covered in the things on the roof. If you have a look on Google Earth, you can see them. You know, it's not something that will be possible for everyone, but have a think about the roof space that you got, or any ground areas that are unused that could house ground-mounted panels. So reducing is the next step. And if you've got buildings with a heating system, then think about timers, because that's what we did at FGR, and that helped to bring about this big reduction in energy consumption over the past few years. We reviewed how we use the building, thinking about what time the heating comes on, how long does the building take to reach the right temperature, and what time does it go off, because, you know, buildings take time to cool down, so you don't need it to switch off as the last person leaves the building. If you can save just 30 minutes in the morning and another 30 minutes in the evening, that's 5 hours over a working week. You know, heating for, say, 30 weeks of a year, that's 150 hours worth of energy you could be saving without noticing any difference. Yeah, and also, you know, think about what level heating that you need. You know, do corridors need to be heated to the same level, you know, as rooms that are occupied on a regular basis? You know, all these things, they're quick and they're simple to implement. And, you know, they're as applicable anywhere, to your home life, to your hobby, to your workplace, wherever. Turning stuff off, you know, that's important too. We turn off all the hospitality fridges that we got just prior, turn them on just prior to a game, and then we knock them off again right at the end. So there's no need to keep, you know, a bottle cold for 2 weeks whilst you wait for the next home game to come along. Yeah, other things like motion sensors are useful to control lighting, you know, especially outside where things can accidentally be left on for days, you know, days on end, in wasting valuable energy. Replacing side of things, we look for more environmentally and efficient replacements, you know, something as part of our procurement work. You know, it might cost a little bit extra in the short term, but think about the long-term benefits too. You know, things like modern LED tubes will last a lot longer than a standard sort of fluorescent tube, and they're more robust and produce the brighter for less energy. So, you know, they make sense from an economic as well as an environmental perspective. You can apply that approach of avoiding, reducing, replacing, you know, to any part of your club. For instance, you know, FGR, we avoid single-use plastic bottles for cleaning materials by manufacturing an ozone-charged water on site, which takes tap water, uses electrical charge to produce ozone inside, and it's an effective disinfectant. It's called Tisano. And producing it on site, you know, is great because it cuts down on delivery emissions, and all helps, you know, at the minute to ensure that we've got a ready supply of antibacterial, which is, you know, pretty important. We don't use any chemicals on our site, not even for the pitch, because that's organic. And, you know, the same care is taken everywhere else as well. So we handpick weeds because, you know, eliminating pesticides helps to support the pollinators and other wildlife. You know, we've even got a beehive, which is pictured there, to help support that local ecosystem. Things like reduction. So we've cut our mains water requirement by recycling the rainwater from the pitch. It's captured, fed down pipes into a big tank, and then pumped back onto the pitch as part of the sprinkler system. Because, you know, water's another big consumable at the club, as it is for lots of football teams. You know, our vehicle wash that we use is self-circulating. It's got little microbes that help to break down the contaminants. And drinking water we've now made more accessible for fans by installing water bottle refill points in the stadium. You know, that's good, not just for reduce supply waste by removing some of those bottles that, you know, we currently send off to be recycled at the end of a match. We cut supply chain emissions. There's the picture of the bar there, by sourcing local produce, things like Stroud Brewery and Cotswold Brewery for, all of our catering outlets and hospitality. Buying things locally means that we get less packaging because it doesn't have to be protected for long journeys of thousands of miles. But, we also reduce the amount of waste by buying in bulk wherever possible. Not only does that reduce the environmental impacts, but again, there's less rubbish for us to try and dispose of at the end of the day. Kit is important. You'll all be aware of the problems with microplastics filtering down through the water system and into the oceans. And the clothes that we wear as people today, they're often synthetic and releasing those particles, during the washing process. So, sports kits, they're typically all made of polyester and man-made fabrics. But we've been working with our kit supplier FGR. Company called Player Layer to find sustainable alternatives, and this season we've been using a kit that's made from 50% bamboo charcoal. We've also been conducting trials on a new fabric that's made from recycled coffee grounds. That's exciting things for the future. An alternative to man-made fibers are still going to be a little way off, but especially to reach that thing that top sports people need. But thinking about your team, there are other things that you can do to address these issues. You can look at reducing your environmental impact when you're washing the kit, so using eco-friendly washing products in the shortest, coolest wash possible to get that job done. Next one, transport. That's an issue for all clubs. How players get to matches as well as fans transport to both home and away games, results in the creation of, a significant old, wedge of carbon emissions. We've got charge points as soon as you arrive at FGR for electric vehicles. Being a club with a, sorry, I've got a dog barking in the background, with a really sort of, hefty local fan base, a lot of our fans can still walk to games, although, being at the top of the hill, that's a bit of a challenge for some. We've done our best wherever possible to work with the local transport providers, as well as setting up a park and ride system to help, not just address local congestion, but also to utilise some of that space that would otherwise sit empty at weekends. And over the years, we tried a load of different initiatives. We've worked with Nissan to provide players with battery-powered vehicles. Our kitman currently uses an electric van for delivering the kit between the training ground. It'd be great if we could find an electric-powered coach that's suitable for the length of journeys that the team needs to do. I guess with COVID, it's shown us that fans traveling to games can be reduced by streaming the match on the net for them to watch at home. But to be honest, I think the days of teams playing and nobody actually traveling to the game are still going to be long off in the future. For now, I think we just have to focus on how we can reduce the impacts of our fans and at the same time retain that sort of experience that they're looking for. Replacing things, but we switched diesel-powered grounds maintenance equipment for electric-powered equipment. We've got a battery-powered robot mower, and we were quite sort of, groundbreaking when we first introduced the Mobot that's pictured down there on the penultimate picture photo. It's great, it's now the sort of technology that you find in the home with remote controlled robot hoovers. But 10 years ago when he came to live with us, it was great. He's fab, and he can work 24/7. If he ever has a problem, he can text the groundsman no matter what time of day and night. And when he needs a charge, he just trundles along the pitch, plugs himself into his charge point, and uses the solar panels on the stadium to charge his power. So that's fab. What else have we got? It's not included in our carbon footprint, but food. Something FGR. We've definitely reduced our environmental impact. We've replaced all meat and dairy in the catering. Nearly a fifth of global carbon emissions relate back to livestock farming, and we're the first vegan football club in the world recognised by the Vegan Society. But it's a gradual process. From taking out red meat back in 2010 to finally replacing dairy with oat milk in 2015. And initially, there was uproar with fans because they couldn't see how it was possible to survive 90 minutes without a meat pie. But now it's accepted and it's part of who we are. It's generated so much media interest, which has highlighted this whole food emissions debate that we want to talk to people about. And it's also given folk a chance to find out vegan food, it isn't just beige and it's not boring. So people now actually come to FGR to visit us because they've heard about our food and our burgers and they want to try them for themselves. And it's created this whole new industry for us, the Devil's Kitchen, as I said earlier. You know, our food manufacturing business that's now supplying wholesale, you know, in the domestic market. It means that, you know, everybody can have a taste of that FGR experience. But going back to that quote from Dale that I shared earlier, you know, and what Zane was talking about, it's important to remember sustainability. It does stretch further than just working out your carbon footprint. You know, and FGR, we have the FGR Community Trust, which, yeah, it's a charitable trust that delivers programs, yeah, not just on sport, but it covers other areas such as the environment and health and well-being. And this is all done on site through tours of the ground on match days, as well as for visiting school groups and other groups who come along in the week to find out about the club and what we do, and learn more about healthy lifestyles and a balanced diet. And the trusts also run a thing called an ambassadors program, which is, you know, pretty unique, because we've got around 100 ambassadors in schools and colleges and community groups across the local region. And these young people, they don't just help to promote the club in the activities that we do, but they also help to spread out information about those key areas of sustainability and well-being. And the stuff that the community trust covers with groups, you know, all the things that you could look at discussing with your teams as well. It's not just the food side, which is, you know, responsible for those fifth of global carbon emissions, but the other wider areas of sustainability and well-being. And, you know, if you go and take a look at the UN, they've got 17 sustainable development goals, and, you know, they're definitely worth looking at as a sort of starting point for the other areas that potentially you can look at and cover with your grassroots teams. Yeah, of course, as you address and you eliminate those big impacts of carbon at the top of your list, new ones are going to shift up and take their place. So once you've removed the emissions for electric and gas, it just highlights the next areas that you need, you know, further efforts on. So, yeah, not surprising for us to find transports on that list. And this year, you know, we included fan coach travel to away games for the first time. Obviously, this was the 2019-20 season rather than the one that we're currently in. But we're also looking, you know, once things begin to return to normal, at putting, you know, figures in for the impact of fans' transport to home games, which again, you know, is going to be a significant number. But further down the line, we're building a new stadium just off the M5, and we've shown, you know, what can be done, you know, for greening up an existing site, sort of, you know, retrofitting sustainability. But this, you know, Eco Park is going to be our opportunity to show, you know, what can be done when you approach it from, yeah, a completely new start. So we've seen a lot of advantages, you know, during our sustainability journey at FGR. It's not just financial savings in those early days from reducing energy and raw materials, but, you know, there are large-scale media exposure across the globe, and, you know, the UN asking us to be part of their initiatives, and, you know, Premier League clubs coming to us. And, you know, yeah, I sit there sometimes and I think, is this real? Because, you know, I'm sat here and we're just the little club at the top of the hill, and we're talking, you know, on an international platform. You know, new ventures have come out of the work at FGR with the vegan food business, and we've seen, you know, sponsorship increase dramatically. You know, big brands, people like Quorn in Oakley, and, you know, Innocent taking on the naming rights for the stadium. Just recently, Brewdog, oh yeah, all wanting to be part of our journey. So what are the main things that, you know, potentially I can advise, you know, from the work that we've done at FGR? I guess the first one is to keep things simple. Start with the easy things, and then expand out as you get more confident. You know, check out the United Nations Sport for Climate Action framework, because it's a nicely set out set of, you know, very similar process to the one that I've run through today. You don't necessarily have to stick rigidly to it and take all elements on board, but, you know, it's a great starting point as to the things that you can do to make whichever sport you're involved in much more sustainable. Number two, seek buy-in across all levels, you know, not just from your players and your fans, and, you know, families, local residents as well, thinking of that larger community, because they're all part of the solution to building a more sustainable club. Choose your message is number three. Choose your message for your audience, because people who are finance-led may better relate if you show them cost savings and your projections over a lifetime of a project, rather than talking about carbon and, you know, other things that they might not sort of, you know, gel so much with. So think about, you know, cost savings from things like your LED bulbs, or energy saving from changing thermostats, things along those lines. don't be afraid to stick with things. You know, a lot of organisations would have turned around, put the meat pies back on the menu, and if we'd done that, there'd be no Devil's Kitchen. We'd have, you know, received significantly less media coverage to highlight those topics that we wanted to talk about. Yeah, and sponsorship would probably be a lot less than the levels that we currently see. You know, it's been an interesting old decade at FGR, and we've been on the ascent, you know, in so many ways, I guess, and we're definitely not finished yet. And who knows, you know, give it another 10 years where we're going to be. Hopefully you'll be able to come along soon and actually watch a game up at the Innocent New Lawn. And yeah, thanks for watching tonight, and I'll hand back over and keep your questions for later on in the session. Thanks a lot.
We're going to jump into a Kahoot quiz. Does everybody know how to use Kahoot at all? Drop a yes in the chat if you do. So question 1, why is sustainability important? It's not to protect our natural environment and life, to protect just animals and insects, or not sure. That's nice to see people taking the right one. Well done. Meredith was the fastest. Which methods are most sustainable for collecting clean energy? Ooh. Meredith's still on top, but we've got 2 new people contesting. By 2050, what percentage of football league clubs can expect flooding every year? Oh, that's very interesting to see. We all say the same. According to the World Health Organization, what number of deaths were avoidable if the individuals were more active? We have covered this question. It's 5 million. Meredith still leads. Which football club is the most sustainable football club in the world? Of course, it's Forest Green. Unfortunately, it's not Chelsea. Here. Which event in 2019 was cancelled due to extreme heat wave? The New York Triathlon and New York course race. They experienced a very high temperatures throughout the whole of the summer that year. Do a nice true or false. It takes more energy to make 1 kilogram of paper than it does to make 1 kilogram of steel. It's true. Oh, Meredith still in the lead. Which one of these will have a negative effect on drinking water? Or everyone got that one correct? Barla on 5 Street. Which one of these methods would not benefit the environment? Very nice to see. It's getting very close at the top. How many people die of air pollution each year? 7 million people. Last question. I've learnt new information about sustainability, which will benefit my sporting club or organisation. That's obviously, thank you very much. Third place, I can't pronounce that name. Second, Bala. And number 1 was Meredith. Well done, Meredith. So just to say that again, well done for completing the Hoot quiz. We will meet back in 5 minutes, have a nice little drinks break, and thank you for your attention so far.
Hi, so we'd like to welcome everyone back now to part 2, the interactive workshop. So we're going to be moving into the breakout rooms now for the next 10 or so minutes. You'll be automatically assigned to the breakout rooms by a notification. You'll be assigned into groups of 3 or 4 and tasked with working through specific sustainability-based exemplars. And then after the 10 minutes, we're going to ask you to rejoin the main call, and we're just going to kind of collaborate together on the ideas that we've come up with and just go over all the points that you've raised. So the notification should come through any second now.
So that was some brilliant discussions I saw there. I was in a few of the breakout rooms there, and it was brilliant going through some of the scenarios and seeing what you would do in the shoes of some of these grassroots sports club. So to begin with, we've got scenario 1. If anyone who's in scenario 1, be ready to pitch. So you are a grassroots club that has a very limited budget allocated to the development of the club, meaning investing in more sustainable practices isn't an option. Suggest some ways, free of finance, by which you could become more sustainable by just altering some of their practices. So what are the options for saving money on kit and equipment that you have decided? So would whoever was in scenario 1 like to unmute themselves?
All right, hello. I'll just go through what we kind of spoke about in our breakout group then. So obviously with a very limited budget and not much money, we looked at stuff such as not getting a new kit every year. Obviously that can take a huge budget out of the way, just reusing kits, looking at all the options for passing down kit through teams in your Sunday. So say for a Sunday league club, you might get a new kit 1 year, and then the next year you could pass it down to the reserves. Or when you're going up age groups from say like under 10s to under 12s to under 14s, you could just have a kit for that age group and just keep that flowing through the club really.
So there's some other options there. Ewan, do you want to talk through them as well?
Yeah, I can do. So obviously reusable bottles, such a good idea for sports clubs, especially for your weekend teams. They can, obviously, how many times do you go to a Sunday game and you see like Lucozade bottles on the floor, just left there neglected, just ruining the environment really. So if you have reusable bottles, say the manager could be in charge or someone from the team each week to fill them up and bring them for everyone. That saves everyone from bringing their own water bottles and potentially leaving them lying around. Obviously, we talk about reusing kit from last season and keeping them in the club. Kit exchange, I will just touch on quickly. Once you have finally used up all your kit and you think you can't use it anymore, there are plenty of websites and kit exchanges that will happily take your shirt and give them on to another club who would be very, very thankful for them.
Brilliant. And what was the other scenario you were able to complete as well?
I think it's number 4 if you still got it up there.
Okay. So maybe if we move on to Elliot, and then we'll come back to you, Ewan.
Yeah, no worries.
So Elliot, if you'd like to come on, or someone from your group to pitch. So Elliot's scenario is you are a local grassroots sports club that competes in fixtures that forces them to travel large distances as a team, meaning that their carbon emissions are high. Also, many new members of the club are finding it difficult to be part of the club due to travelling issues. Suggest ways in which the team might be able to counteract this and lower their overall emissions as a club. So would the individual like to pitch, or Elliot, like?
Yeah, if anyone who was with me at all would like to say something beforehand, that would be.
Do you want me to say something, Elliot?
More than welcome to take the floor.
Okay, cool. So we were discussing what different scenarios, and what I mentioned to Elliot is that so I've set up a consultancy called Fly Green Alliance, and we work on to increase the production and supply of sustainable aviation fuel. We also are starting to work with the sports sector, and actually one of the football club, and they are starting to look into how to create sustainable travel policies, and to kind of work out that sometimes their travel is up to 90% of their emissions. So we are starting to. So initially, it's about calculating the emissions, working out what percent the travel is, and then creating sustainable travel policies, and kind of looking into whether virtual, obviously not for the matches, but if some meetings can be replaced with virtual, if some of the trips can be replaced with like rail, if looking at kind of economy versus business class or chartered in some cases, and working with kind of looking whether EV can be introduced or replacement rail, and then what we do is then offset all with sustainable aviation fuel or other offsets, and we start to work out and we start to build the partnerships with airlines, kind of sustainable fuel suppliers, airports, and we manage kind of the delivery of the fuel to different areas. So so this definitely was our scenario. So yeah, there's the work starting to happen in this area where different clubs and sports organisations are realising that travel is a high percentage, and they're starting to want to have sustainable travel policies. So work is kind of on its way.
Thank you very much, Sheriff. It was a nice insight to see that someone's taking responsibility for the travel of sporting people. So, thank you very much for that. Meredith made some good points about social sustainability as well within our discussion.
Yeah. So we were talking a little bit as well about how to make sports more accessible for all people. Because the club, it wasn't specified whether or not the club was targeted towards either children or young adults or an adult league. We had a couple of different options for both. One was in terms of making sure other people could travel would be some kind of grant, perhaps could be in partnership with a sponsorship from a company that focuses on sustainability or sports in some way, but really making sure that cost, for example, isn't a barrier for travel. And also in terms of the league as well, because it probably likely means that this club isn't the only one that is struggling for travel. Looking at other options in terms of fixtures, if there's a way to play maybe 2 games nearby or something like that, or miniature day tournaments, or even making sure that the calendar of fixtures doesn't clash with any particular religious or cultural holidays or other events that might be barriers for participation for some people.
So these were sort of some of the lines we talked about when discussing the scenario. I'd like to thank Meredith, Sarah, and
Nathan for participating in this scenario. Thank you very much, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you. That sounds brilliant. You've really had like a very comprehensive discussion on this scenario. So well done for getting engaged with this one. So we're just going to go on to scenario 4 now, which is Ewan's second one. So if Ewan, you want to come back on and we can talk through this one. So for that one, it's you are one local grassroots team and you're in the process of renovating their clubhouse in an attempt to get the community together post-COVID. Suggest some additional practices for features that could be implemented to improve their sustainability. So Ewan, what was your views on this one?
So for this one of our main focuses was touching on some of the things that Gary said, such as cutting down the consumables. So things like implementing lights that cut off, like sensor lights. We looked at stuff such as taps, obviously not having taps that can run forever, just having touch taps or sensor taps, hand dryers, all of these things that can obviously only be turned on when someone's there. Another big thing that I mentioned was maybe having a community event. So my local club, when undergoing renovation, we invited a load of people down to the ground, got the whole community in spirit, and obviously this helped raise funds, and it also covered the labour, because we made a whole day out of it. Everyone was there, painting the stands, fixing the seats. And it just created a really nice buzz around the club. So hopefully it could also help in the long run with people coming back to the club.
Brilliant, Ewan. Yeah, the community event is a great way to raise funds and to get help with the work. Hopefully, post-COVID, we'll have social distancing all reduced and back to normal social contact like we know it. But yeah, no, that's a great couple of examples you provided there. So lastly, we're on to scenario 5, which is George's group. So this is, you are a local grassroots sports club that suffers with irregular cash flow, restraining the club from being able to keep up with the general maintenance bills. However, the club receives larger finances in lump sums at the start of the fiscal period. To maintain costs. Suggest what could be done to the other individual in that group. If you want to come on and provide us with your pitch.
The host has asked me to unmute myself, so I guess that means I've been chosen by On High. Quick thing from me. Hello, everyone. I'm Barney. I'm working for a charity called Football for Future. The website link is further up in the chat, and we're working on this on a day-to-day. So if you're interested to see it happen elsewhere, then and you want to help in a way, then please get in touch and let us know. Otherwise, so yeah, the quick way that we thought to, what seemed to be the two solutions to address this are either something that can be done immediately and something that can be done a bit longer term. Of course, you can pursue both now, but something that might prove of fruition quickly enough is, and of course, combined with the second solution I mentioned, is sponsorship, being able to actually get some money in to address this issue by the club, pursuing sustainable sponsors. Depending, I mean, if this is at the start of the year, financial year, we're talking April, clubs coming, the season's coming to an end, etc. So you can pursue such sponsorships to be able to replace your food sources, to be able to replace energy, etc. Just like FGR have done. And then, of course, you can also pursue sustainable solutions to getting maintenance bills down. So whether it's installing solar panels to be able to create your own energy, whether it's, as Gary said earlier, identifying where you're basically being or not inefficient, rather, with your current energy. So if you're leaving, the heating on a bit too long, stuff that you, or leaving appliances on that you would normally leave on when you can turn them off and no one's using them anyway. I really like the fridge example earlier as well when it came to hospitality. So those are some of the examples. I've been gratefully helped by Gary there with that session we had of the ways that we can combat this scenario.
Brilliant, thank you there. And I don't know if Zane or George wants to just talk about that last bullet point there as well, and also the AstroTurf one.
Yeah, no, that was a perfect description really of everything that we had summed up. The only other one that we had was investing into the AstroTurfs as a long-term solution on saving on things like maintenance of pitches, for example, like cutting the grasses and painting the pitches. But no, like I said, perfect examples.
Brilliant, thank you, George's group. That was really good. And that's now the end of the breakout rooms and the interactive workshop we've done. So well done to all groups. You've really contributed very well. And now we're going to move on to the next part already.
I think over these past couple of hours that you've been on, I've got to say thank you very much for joining us. And just to wrap up, obviously what we've learned across today, I think we've learned that sustainability is something much bigger than just saving the planet. We've seen it impact major and minor events over the past couple of years. And obviously with COVID, it's become even more greater, which have detrimental effects of where and how we play. But even going further than that, it's bigger than just environmental sustainability. By changing some of your habits, both inside and outside the pitch, whether it's something as small as getting reusable bottles of metal, or something as big as getting LED lights, those simple changes and those small changes can make the biggest difference. And also, as Gary Thomas just said to us over the past couple of hours, just get stuck in. The main thing is just getting encouraged and getting ready to be part of this sustainability revolution. Especially coming out of COVID, there's a lot of people who may not necessarily have the finances or the opportunities to actually participate in sport. So now is the time to really do this. So what's going to happen after this? Well, you're going to get a certificate emailed to you just to say that it's been great to have you attending and that you've learned a lot about sustainability and making your sports club sustainable too. Beyond that, you'll also get a post-event document as well. What that will include is a summary of what you've learned today, including a bit of a case study on Forest Green Rovers itself, as well as more facts and figures and statistics that may encourage you and also people around you to use more sustainable initiatives as we come out of COVID. So I guess all there is to say now is thank you to Gary Thomas, thank you to everyone who's attended, and also thank you as well to anyone watching the recording as well. Thank you very much.